I am back at it again, welding on this case. Just laid a bead right along there to build up that edge. I'll probably go over that one more time, at least in those low spots. And we'll do this bottom edge, or this outside edge. And I think I'll also lay a little weld in there, probably there, and this low spot right in here, just to keep this whole area as flat as possible for when we bolt the plate on it. So that should be plenty good to belt sand down, get it all cleaned up. If there's a little pit here and there, it's not a big deal. That whole backing plate is glued on with silicone, so it's not going to make any difference. So while that's cooling down, I'm going to finish cleaning the other half of the case so we can get to the bandsaw and cut out the filler panel for it. I'm pretty much done with this back edge. Machined it off. It's all nice and smooth. There is some pitting from welding on that old casting. But, like I said, silicone is what glues that back panel on. It's not going to make a bit of difference. And crap, there's pitting all over this case. This case is as old as I am. It deserves a little bit of pitting. But that should work just perfect. I think still need to weld up the distributor hole, or at least plug it. We've got to tap these. We have to tap and plug that oil hole and that oil hole. But right now we're concentrating on welding. So now we have the other half. And this right here is what needs filled in. And we'll cut a chunk of aluminum out, chamfer the edges so we can get some good penetration, and weld a piece in there to where this back edge will be flat again. We've also got two holes here for the cylinder studs. One's still got a case saver in it, so I had to pull that out. Well, we'll need to plug both of those holes. I don't think they go through, but still want to weld them up, make it look nicer. So that's the next project. Go over, get a chunk of aluminum, and hit the bandsaw. Well, things were going good. Got the one side all welded up, filled in, smoothed out, looks good. Go to the other side, and things went sideways. As with most projects, I learned so much just by doing it myself. And one thing I learned is that you cannot weld aluminum to magnesium. I was just under the false impression by looking at the plans and some of the other stuff I'd read that with the right rod, you could weld the two together. That is evidently not the case. I didn't try it, but it's not supposed to be able to be done. And the reason I was thinking that is because when you read the plans, everything is talking about the back plate and, you know, welding stuff into the cylinder heads, which apparently are aluminum. It's talking about using 6061 aluminum, welded in here, welded in there. And the back plate on the engine is 6061. But the pieces that you're welding in, actually welding to the case, have got to be magnesium. And I noticed in one spot that it said it was for filling that oil fill hole. It said cut a piece of the old case out and weld on here. And what we're working on is trying to fill in this hole here, because this has to be straight across for the plate to mount on. And it just shows a chunk of aluminum, or it shows a picture of this thing that's supposed to be about a ½ inch thick that you weld in here. Well, magnesium is really expensive. I mean, the rods were crazy expensive. Trying to buy a chunk of magnesium is really expensive. So I went and grabbed the cases, the back part that I cut off. And if you've ever looked at a Volkswagen case, there's nothing thick about them. Everything is a real thin casting. But what I did manage to do was went to the bandsaw, and one of the only thick places is the main bearing cradle. So I chopped this section out of the waste piece of the case. And here's my plan. I'm going to continue carving on this because it right in this area here, it is thick. But I'm going to cut that cross, and put a piece in from here to here, a piece of bar stock made out of this right here. And I'll, you know, make a nice taper on each piece, generous weld to fasten that in there, because that just needs to hold 2 screws to hold the back plate on. So once I chop that out of here, get the piece of bar welded in there, then I'll just take some more pieces of the case, probably some of the back flange or something, and cut out a little piece to make a cover to go over that. So it won't be one solid piece in here. It'll end up being lighter, but that's what I've come up with so far. So I'm going to cut a little more on this and see if I can come out with a piece that'll fit in there. And here's what I came up with. After a little more chopping on the bandsaw, got a nice little chunk of magnesium. And this right here was where the oil galley was drilled. So I cut right across it. That way I can just weld that in flat. There's a couple of notches here where the casting just tapered back to save weight. I can weld those in if necessary. And then that will fit in just like that. Notch everything nice and deep so I can get good penetration. Weld there. That is plenty wide enough and thick enough for the screws to drill and tap and go in. And then all I have to do is fill in this hole here, which can be a much thinner piece of the casting. Set it down in there a little bit and weld around it, fill those holes. So I think that's going to work. I was kind of worried there for a second. It's like, what am I going to do now? But that should work just perfect. That's part of what I like building stuff for, is all the problem solving that comes along with it. But I've got some other stuff to do, so that's enough on this for tonight. Weekend's coming, supposed to be rainy, so I should be able to get some more done. Like and subscribe. Appreciate you watching. See you next time.